we made a multi-million pound mistake. Back in 2021, when we had the chocolate factory, bit of a recap of this, our first 6 months bootstrapped, we did 100k, no investment, no business plan. The next 8 months we did 1 million. And now the biggest constraint that we had at the time was meeting the demand that we had. So we couldn't get enough supply. And so at this point we were looking at moving into another warehouse. Now, I believe it was November 2021, we had just doubled revenue 3 months in a row. So double, that's 8 times revenue in 90 days. That causes problems, especially for manufacturing businesses. And so we were tearing out our hair, pulling double shifts. We had 2 teams, one work in the morning, one work in the evening, on rotation in a 1,000 square foot warehouse, 17 staff. This place was borderline dangerous. There was not enough place to store stock coming in. If there was a delay on a specific item, it would delay so many orders. We were getting out 300 orders a day. And like, where do you put that much waste? Right, we had like literally pictures of waste up the side of the stairs in plastic bags, just full of wrappers and stuff, were just stacked up there, and it became dangerous. And so we were looking for and required a bigger warehouse. So we eventually moved into a warehouse that was 6,000 square feet. And we found one just round the corner. It was about 100 meters as the crow flies. And we had agreed the move-in date of end of January. And we were like, gosh, okay. So if we put all of our products, which are the hardest things to make and the lowest profit, on sold out, and we only sell the highest profit products, we can delay our sales essentially into only the best stuff and delay this move. Long story short, absolute pain in the bum. We didn't get the keys to this new warehouse until the end of July. And by that time, it really hurt our momentum. And it's taken 4 years for us to come to this realization about what you do when you have a luxury problem like that, when you cannot meet the demand, right? If you're supply constrained. Basic economics will tell you this, and I feel really stupid not doing this now, is you increase your prices. If you double your prices, right, what do you think happens? You double your profit? That makes sense. No. Try 5xing your profit. So let's say you make a 20% margin, bottom line, on whatever you sell. If you double the price, the rest of that money is going entirely to the bottom line because you haven't increased the cost of anything else. Now, bear in mind, yeah, if you double your prices, you're probably not going to maintain the same sales volume or the same sales cycle flow revenue. No, velocity, that's the word, sales velocity. And so, yeah, you might take a hit. If you double prices, you might take a hit of anywhere from 20 to 50%. But do the maths on that. Let's say it's the worst case, you lose half your customers. You're now making the same revenue for fulfilling half the units. That means half the staff, half the cost of goods, and your revenue, your profit probably still doubles by doing that. And you've just halved your workload, i.e. you're now no longer constrained by your supply, and you're making a ton more money. So silly of us and so simple. Following basic economics. When there is not enough supply, you increase price. That's it. And it has a drastic effect on business. So what we ended up doing actually hurt the brand, slowed momentum. We eventually moved into another warehouse. That move cost us over 30 grand, and then the decrease in revenue from the loss of momentum was over 1 million alone, let alone the missed profit of doing something so simple. And what's funny is our product, we were actually a gift. We were a luxury product. We were £7 for a chocolate bar at the time. And you're like, wow, that's quite expensive. But it's not crazy expensive. We were a cheap gift, a cheap luxury item. And if we just bit the bullet and actually went into a premium product of like 15 or 20 pounds, big mistake. Would have made a load more money, had way more profit to actually put into things. And what's funny is the people that were selling for us as well, they would have made more money as well. So it probably would have actually increased total revenue and sales volume. Because if they're making more money, they're more likely to push it, and more likely for people to buy, and so on and so forth, up it goes. So yeah, there you go, lesson learned. When doing business, follow like the most basic principles. And I know when you're working 100-hour weeks and you've got the pressures weighing down of you of 17 people's lives, and all of the lives that you touch, and the leases and the cost of the goods, and like we were spending like 30 grand a pop on Haribo, for God's sakes. We'd order chocolate by the ton. Like, it's a lot of pressure, and then just those basic decisions just leave your brain. And so taking a step back, if you're able to, and consulting someone who's been there and done it so that you don't make the same mistakes, is a really powerful tool. And it's funny because that's exactly the same situation that we're trying to get ourselves into again now with our next business. We currently have too much supply, so we are changing up the way that we do things to increase demand to the point where we're at capacity, and then we're going to raise prices specifically to achieve that same result that it would have had 4 years ago. And hey, life could have been very different now if we'd done it, but we've got the scars and the lessons that go along with it, and now we know what to do next time. And it's definitely one of the scariest levers for people to pull. But I'll give you an example. We raised prices in this company. Actually, I'll tell you, for the chocolate factory, our chocolate bars originally started at £5. We then went up to 7. So that's a 40% increase. Not even the slightest bat of an eyelid. Sales went up. So that should have been a really good sign, just to keep raising prices. And so what we did with our tutoring company recently, we get 7 times the national average result for half the cost. So when margins were a little tight, we increased the price from 120 to 150, so we went up again 25%. And I think out of the 400 students we had at the time, I think we had 3 people leave. You do the maths on that, well worth it. But other than that, we were giving people such value, it didn't make a difference. And so that's exactly what we're about to do. We're not going to change anything, we're not going to break anything until we're at capacity. And then we're going to go breaking stuff and see what happens. So if you need more than one lesson for you to go and raise your prices, you can have my lesson. And hopefully those several million pounds that are not in my bank account from that one mistake, hopefully you won't have that same problem. All right, those are my thoughts for the day. Have a great one. Peace.